डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर ओपन युनिव्हर्सिटी.
Namaskar dear student, I Dr. Himanshu Patel welcome you for the lecture series on mobile operating system. In earlier lecture we have discussed about the basic functions of operating system along with the type of operating system. Now it is time to learn how does operating system start, how does it initialize hardware, which kind of architecture are followed by generalized operating system. In today's session, we are going to discuss general terms of operating system, then we discuss booting sequence of operating system, and then we discuss concept of system call. We discuss various kind of architectures of operating system like monolithic architecture, microkernel architecture, exokernel architecture, and finally we discuss hybrid architecture of operating system. So, let us start with booting sequence of operating system. Booting is the first process of operating system through which entire environment is set up. After completion of booting process, operating system starts its initial process and hand over the control to user by providing user interface. Operating system needs to work with hardware on behalf of user and provide back result which generated by hardware. Now, to work with hardware, operating system uses various kind of system calls. Now, at the end of this lecture, we will discuss about the various architectures which have been developed over time. Now, before diving into booting process of operating system, there are some basic concepts that needs to be understood. Now, let us discuss general terms of operating system. The first term is BIOS, which stands for Basic Input Output System. It is responsible for performing basic input output operations as its name suggests, and these operations are low level routines that are used by operating system to interact with IO device such as keyboard, mouse, monitor, etc. Now, later on we will see that BIOS is responsible to initialize the loading process of operating system to main memory from secondary memory. Now, all programs resides in a secondary storage device, and before it get executed, it must be loaded into main memory. Now, the second term is bootstrapping. The operating system is stored on hard disk as we mentioned earlier. We need to load operating system from hard disk to the main memory or RAM. To do the same, we need to execute a set of instructions that load the operating system onto memory. The entire execution process of loading operating system from secondary memory to main memory is called bootstrapping or booting process. Now, third term is bootloader. We discuss what is booting. Now, we move on to third term, which is bootloader or also called bootstrap loader. Now, what is bootloader? The set of instruction that loads operating system from hard disk to memory is known as bootloader or simply called bootstrap loader. Sometimes it is also called boot software. Now, third device is bootstrap loader, fourth is boot device. The operating system is permanently stored in secondary storage memory or secondary storage device. The secondary memory can be hard disk, CD, pen drive or any external device. The device that stores the operating system is called boot device. Now, fifth term is boot sector. Now, BIOS contains a program that loads the first sector of boot device, which is called boot sector. It is called boot sector because of its location. It is the location in the first sector on hard disk. Sector 1 cylinder 0 and head 0. It is also called master boot record or MBR. Generally, boot sector is the part of hard disk with size of 512 bytes. In the MBR, the first 446 bytes are the primary bootloader, which is also referred as a PBL or primary boot loader. The next 64 bytes are the partition table, which has the record for each of the hard disk partition. We know that where we have different kind of partitions like C drive, D drive, E drive. So, record of each of the hard disk partition is stored in this table. The MBR ends with 2 bytes, that should be in hexadecimal AA55. Why? These number act as a validation of this sector, indicating that it is the boot sector or master boot record. The next term is privileged instruction. Now, what is privileged instruction? Operating system user is not allowed to access attached device directly. If user wants to access device and get some result, he or she need to pass the instruction to the operating system. On the behalf of the user, operating system interact with the device and gives the result to the user. Thus, these kind of instructions which are not directly executed by the user, but needs to pass to the operating system are called privileged instruction. Its name itself suggests that why it is called privilege. It can only be accessed by operating system and not directly by the user. That is why it is known as a privilege instruction. The next term is system call. We refer system calls frequently. So, you must understand what is system call. Now, all the privilege instruction that need to interact with hardware and other resources are known as system calls. For example, when user wants to display some text on monitor, he or she needs to write some output instruction in proper format. Now, these instruction program is called system call. So, whatever functionality access from operating system is in form of system call. Now, let us try to understand general booting sequence. Now, what will happen? We will understand step by step how booting sequence is completed. Now, generally booting processes depend on the operating system. It varies with type of operating system. So, whatever here we are going to discuss is the general booting sequence. It is not specific for particular operating system, but all operating system generally follows this sequence. Now, let us understand step by step how the operating system can be loaded and start operating. The very first step in this process is to turn on the CPU button. We first start the CPU by pressing power button. Now, whenever the computer is switch on, all CPU pins and registers are reset to specific value and the control is transferred to the BIOS in the ROM, or which is also known as a flash RAM. So, this is first step. Now, what is second step? The second step is the first job of the BIOS is to initialize and identify system devices such as keyboard, mouse, monitor, video card, hard disk, etc. This initialization process is called power on self test, which is in short called POST. POST, full form of POST is power on self test. Now, this test is the foremost routine which checks the test and the basic hardware. Now, what happens if it is fails? It will display error. So, this is second step, power on the CPU and post test is done. Now, what is third step? Third step is, after the execution of post, the BIOS determines the boot sector or master boot record and reads it. Now, why we need to read it? This boot sector contains program called MBR. It copies MBR to RAM. The MBR first examines the partition table and determines which partition is active. So, this is the third step. Now, the fourth step is, in the particular partition there is a bootloader or bootstrap loader that we have discussed earlier, which loads into the memory. The bootloader now leads operating system from secondary memory to RAM, which is also known as bootstrapping, that we have already discussed. The next step, or step 5, is, once the operating system has loaded into RAM, the boot process relinquishes control to the operating system. After that, operating system first queries the BIOS for the configuration information. The operating system checks drivers for the attached devices and load into the kernel space. The next step, or step 6, is, at the end system will display user login screen. Generally we see user login screen first. So, after completing these 5 steps, operating system displays user login space or user login screen. The user programs are loaded into the memory as the user login into the system. It might be noted that this sequence may slightly change in different operating system, because we have discussed general steps. This is not particular to any operating system, but these are the general sequence that will happen when you first start your system. Now, let us try to understand system call. We have discussed what is booting and how it will happen when you switch on your system. Now, let us try to understand the concept of system call. We know that privilege instruction are called system calls, because it is not directly accessed by the users. The role of system call is important for understanding the operation of operating system. Before going into the details of system calls, we need to understand the working mode of operating system. Modern operating system have 2 modes. First, kernel mode, and second is called user mode. Now, all the user processes are executed in user mode, and all privilege operations are executed in kernel mode. Many times user processes need to access system devices that need to execute privilege operation. The privilege operations are not allowed to execute in user mode. They are only allowed to be executed in kernel mode. Since operating system prevents direct access of kernel mode, problem is how user mode processes execute privilege operations. User mode operations cannot be performed in kernel mode, and kernel mode operation cannot be performed in user mode. So, user mode process uses the kernel mode function by special interface. Now, these interface permits interaction between user mode and kernel mode, and this interface is called system call. Now, I hope you understand that suppose user want to access some privilege instruction in kernel mode, then it needs to call or use system call. In other words, system call is an instruction which requests operating system to perform specific operation that need hardware access. Generally, system calls are made by the user program in the situations that we are going to discuss. The first is to create, delete or open a file in the file system. So, this is first situation. Second, to create and manage new processes. Third, to create network connection. Fourth, to send and receive data packets from network. Fifth, to access hardware. And sixth, to manage main memory. Seventh, to protect the data. So, these are the situations where user need to access or use system call. Now, let us understand types of system calls. System calls are used to access the system resource, that we all know. Now, the type of system calls depends on the use of these resources. Basically, there are 5 broad categories of system calls, which are: first, device management system calls. Then, what is device management system call? The user need to access devices such as keyboard, mouse and monitor. However, she cannot access them directly. These system calls are responsible for device manipulation such as reading data from keyboard, displaying data on monitor, etc. The general command related to this category are request of the devices, release of the devices, read or write operation, etc. The second type of system calls are file management system calls. The user store his or her data in various kind of files. User needs to create, update, open, close, read, write or delete a file in computer system. The user need to access these resources through file management system call, as its name suggests. These are system calls which are responsible for file manipulation, such as creating file, reading file, writing into file, etc. The third type of system call is communication system calls. In computer system, processes need to communicate internally. All the communication operations performed by the communication system calls. These system calls are useful for inter-process communication, and they are also deal with creating and deleting a communication connection. The fourth kind of system calls are process control system calls. The process is the basic entity in the operating system. The process needs to be created, deleted or aborted. Now, all the process management are performed by the process control system calls. These system calls deal with the process such as process creation, process termination and other process related activities. Now, fifth type of system calls are information maintenance system calls. Now, information maintenance system calls are for accounting and providing information to user. These information can be about process, memory, hard disk, space, operating system, computer system, etc. Now, these system calls handles information and it transfers between operating system and user program. So, we have discussed various types of system calls. There are mainly 5 types of system calls. Now our focus is on architecture of operating system. We have discussed boot sequence, then system call, types of system calls. Now, we try to focus on architecture of operating system. To get efficient performance from the operating system, it should be partitioned into subsystems. These subsystems are separated based on its task, inputs, outputs and performances. These subsystems can then be arranged into architectural configuration. An operating system works on any one architecture from the 4 types that we are going to discuss. The first architecture is monolithic architecture. Second is microkernel architecture. Third is exokernel architecture and fourth one is hybrid architecture. So, operating system use any of these architecture to divide its function into subsystems. First we discuss monolithic architecture. Now, we know that in the modern operating system has user mode and kernel mode. Kernel mode is used to access the hardware. The kernel has unrestricted access to all resources and hardware of the system, right. The earlier operating systems were developed in the same way as a programming. The operating systems has one file with all functionality and calling each other without any restriction. Now, due to limited functionalities provided by the operating systems, all are placed in kernel mode. Now, this kind of structure is called monolithic architecture. In the early monolithic architecture, every component of operating system was contained within the kernel. Mono is a term refers to single. So, everything is contained within the kernel. It means that all the functions were executed in single space called kernel space. Now, the advantage of this kind of structure is that function can communicate efficiently to each other. Monolithic architecture has drawback also. As all functionalities placed in single layer or kernel mode, it is difficult to isolate errors or difficult to modify in a function or modules. So, that is the drawback. It has also some drawback. Now, let us try to look at the monolithic architecture. On screen you can see the monolithic architecture. So, here you can see that application use system calls to access various functions within kernel space like memory manager, processor scheduler, inter-process communication, file systems, input output manager and network manager. So, Microsoft Windows 95, Microsoft Windows 98, BSDs, Solaris, DOS, initial version of Unix and Linux are the operating system which are built on monolithic architecture. So, these are the examples of monolithic architecture. Now, let us try to understand second architecture which is known as a microkernel architecture. As operating system becomes larger and more complex, the size and work of kernel has also increased. Large size kernels are difficult to maintain. Operating system developer also faced problem of extensibility, efficiency and reliability of kernel. In earlier architecture, everything is within kernel space. Now, what will happen if kernel crash? Every functionality stops working. So, developers tried to invent a new operating system architecture that had less load in kernel mode. As a result, microkernel architecture was developed. In microkernel architecture, very small number of essential functionality are handled by the kernel. The kernel which manages only essential functionality is called microkernel architecture. The essential functionalities may be process management, inter-process communication, memory management, and so on. In these kind of architecture, other non-essential functionality are moved up in the user mode. So, there is less burden on kernel. The non-essential functionality may be file system management, network management, process scheduler, device manager, and so on. So, some of the functionality are kept in kernel mode and some non-essential functionality are now kept in user mode. These kind of architecture divided the large size kernel into two parts. First is kernel mode and second is user mode. Each mode has a specific limited functionality to handle. As a result, kernel or microkernel is extensible and portable and also scalable. Now, microkernel architecture has been used in many operating systems. Example of operating system that use microkernel are QNX, Integrity, PikeOS, Symbian, L4 Linux, Singularity, K42, Mac OS X, Hurd, Minix and Koyotos. Now, let us look at the microkernel architecture. On screen you can see the architecture of microkernel architecture. So, here you can see that in applications call all the functionality via system call interface and file system, process scheduler and device manager runs in user space. You can see in the figure, and below that there are some essential functionality like inter-process communication, memory management and synchronization is performed in kernel space. So, this is a microkernel architecture. Now, let us try to conclude this session. In this session, we have discussed some important terminology regarding operating system like booting, bootstrap loader. We have discussed booting sequence and we have discussed two generalized operating system architecture or operating system architecture. In next lecture, we will compare and contrast these two architecture and we will also discuss remaining two architecture, right. So, I hope you enjoy this session. Thank you and happy learning.
स्वाध्यायः